fight, freeze, fly. Those one are three the most common responses in stressful situation. And coming to a different country, strange country, it is a really stressful situation. And today I'm gonna be talking about my arrival into Australia. My name is Monika, and in the series I'm talking about my migration journey. So let's dive into it. Today I want to share a little bit of that emotional arrival into the new country, because it was emotional on so many different levels, really. Stress, excitement, I think also fear, a bit of a panic attack. So we're gonna talk about all that today, and also reflecting on that first week, the first 2 weeks being in a new country, reflecting what I could have done differently to make that whole process a bit easier. Let's start with arrival, really. So when I landed in Australia, if you've seen my previous video, you know that it was quite a journey with a stopover in Singapore, not exactly planned, but if you haven't seen that story, just watch a previous video on my emergency landing in Singapore. Anyhow, after 3 days of travel, I'm finally in Melbourne, Australia, and as you can imagine, you land on at the airport and you are so tired. It's a long trip. I don't know what part of the world you're coming to Australia, but coming from Poland, Europe, that is quite a journey. So I was exhausted, but still, just working on that adrenaline, and I was still in that task mode. Okay, now I need to go on the bus, get to the city, then get on the train, and then get to my accommodation. And I knew that I'm so close, and then I'm gonna be safe. I'm gonna be in my destination, and I'll finally have time to just sit, breathe, and relax. So I took the bus. I got to Southern Cross Station, which is a big train station. I was almost hit by the car when I was crossing the street, because in Europe, when you're crossing the street, cars, they actually had to stop when they see you getting closer to the road. Here, no. And also, the cars, they go from a different side, because we drive on the left in Australia. But being tired after all that travel, my brain was just half working. Anyhow, I managed to get safely to a tram station. I got to a tram. There was another small shocker for me, because I imagine Australia being really developed country. So seeing a tram that is not with a low suspension in a CBD, I was quite, okay, weird. I mean, it's not a big deal. In Poland we have trams as well that you need to do a few steps. Not that many anymore, but imagine carrying a 33 kilograms suitcase and a second suitcase and a backpack, and you have these few steps to do to actually get to the tram. And because Australia really fought for their equality, no one actually helped. I was a little bit, I was just tired, really, and I just thought, oh, how nice it would be if someone would actually offer to carry that suitcase. Months later, I find out, talking to my Australian friend, that guys are actually terrified to help girls with anything because they can be yelled at. Yeah, that's not the equality. I never fought for equality like that. So please, guys, if you can see that someone, a woman is struggling with something heavy, please don't be afraid. Just ask if maybe you can offer help. I'll definitely say yes and be very grateful. Anyhow, I'm on that tram getting to my destination. And when I finally got there, it was a very modern apartment block, and I had that small talk with the owner, a Polish woman. I got to the room, and the room was okay. It was just a little bit weird because it had that very Australian window, which is a small, long window on the top of the wall. It kind of reminds me windows in basements in Poland, even though it was a second floor, so why there's a normal window that I could actually see outside. I don't know. Anyone, if Australians are here, or anyone who knows why there are no normal windows, a big window, please let me know. I was just a little bit surprised. But anyhow, I think it was just again the tiredness, exhaustion after that trip. I was just, oh, well, it would be nice to actually see what is outside, because that small window makes me feel very confined, a little prison. But anyhow, I was in that room, I sat down, and I think that's when the reality hit. It was, I finally was there in a safe space. I didn't have to go anywhere else. That adrenaline was starting to, worn off, and it finally hit me. I'm 16,000 kilometers away from home with this, a person that I don't know in this strange country. I wasn't excited, I was terrified. I think I had like a panic attack, because I just started crying like a lot, thinking like, what have I done? What I'm gonna do tomorrow? How I'm gonna get a job? My English is not as good. Where I'm gonna find that job? How I'm gonna survive here? I don't know anyone. I don't know where to go. Then, everything just suddenly, all those thoughts, it was like a train going through my brain, like, oh my god, everything. And I started panicking, like, oh my god, that's just terrifying. And I remember crying a lot every time I was in that room. I only stayed with that woman for 2 weeks, because the first week she offered me to stay for free, and then the second week she actually asked for money, and quite a lot, which is fair enough. Obviously she wanted to earn money. I was just hoping that at least she would give me some, discount as of being the same nationals, but no. So I only stayed there 2 weeks, one free, one I had to pay, and then I had to find different accommodation. Anyway, in those 2 weeks, every time I was in that room, in that apartment, I would get that panic attack. So what I've done, and it worked for me as well when I was in Lisbon, Portugal, and I had the same mental breakdown as much as possible. I was just going out, I would be wandering around the city, I would take a tram to CBD, and I would just walk around. I wasn't sightseeing because I was just so stressed about finding a job and actually getting money to survive. So I wasn't actually sightseeing, taking pictures or anything. I was just walking around really, and looking for a job. I had a stack of CVs printed, and I would go from place to place, ask maybe they're looking for someone. So that would make me feel a little bit better, because at least in my brain I felt I'm quite productive, because I'm doing some, even though it didn't bring much of the results, at least I think, subconsciously I was calmer, because I knew that, okay, I'm doing something towards my goals. But then, every time I would go back to the apartment, that panic attack would just hit me back again. That was the first, I would say, 2-3 weeks until I actually got the job. Quite stressful. As well, those things, people I think don't talk about it quite often, but if you're in a new country, everything is new. And I remember even going to the grocery shop, I didn't know any of those products. Everything seems, the brands, everything different. I mean, I know there's milk, okay, we have this milk and we have milk in Poland, but it's a different brands, like, is that good, is that bad? There's just so many things that you need to learn. You need to find new shops to like, new products. I remember those first months I was actually just living on a toast bread with white cheese, because that was the cheapest thing to get in a shop. So I was just the cheapest horrible bread and the cheapest white cheese, and that was my breakfast, dinner, lunch, supper, everything. So it was stressful. Now, coming to the things that I would probably could have done differently, probably I would stay with a different person. I was so fixated on finding someone Polish, because I thought they would understand, my struggle being in a different country, and also there would not be such a language barrier. But this person, she actually turned out to be quite unhelpful and cold, basically very indifferent to my feelings, and actually quite annoyed, I think, that I'm there for so long, just keep crying and being upset, which I get it. However, now when I have some new people coming to the country, I always try to help them, and I would never be like, hey, just suck it up and stop being a pussy, because I know how it is. I know how many emotions are going through your head. So sometimes just being there and listening, that would already be a big help. Probably, yeah, finding a different person, staying with a group of people would be a better idea. Maybe finding like a student accommodation or accommodation where there's more rooms and like a common space so people can meet. That's the accommodation that Edgar was staying, and it actually worked really well because you have more people you can talk to, and there are people from different countries. They are exactly on the same boat, so it's different. They understand your struggle. So probably that would be my advice. Just find accommodation when there are people similar age, maybe like a shared big house accommodation with. Second, to have a support group. It's quite hard because of the time difference as well. People don't really talk about that issue, I think, a lot, but there's a big time difference. So when I was there crying, I couldn't even call anyone in Poland because of the time difference. So having that support group, maybe organize your friends, just let them know, hey, what time I could call you so we can talk. The other thing, probably get to know people before you actually get there. That can be quite tricky and hard because if you're going completely alone, you're probably not gonna know anyone. However, now, 21st century, we have internet, we have Facebook groups. You might have time to prepare and maybe start talking to people in the city and organize, hey, once I'm there, maybe we can go for a coffee, maybe you can, show me around, so you at least have someone already there that can show you and help you a little bit around. But anyhow, that's my first 2 weeks in Australia, and that first kind of like a roller coaster. I think what I'm trying to say here, even as much as you can be prepared, because I was prepared, I had everything figured out, like where to go, what bus, what train, how to get to my accommodation. I got that accommodation organized, so I had everything organized, and even though it was still so extremely stressful, just that panic attacks and the reality being in so far away and not having anyone to save you. But anyhow, definitely be prepared and get that support group, get to know people before you get to your destination. I'm not saying that that's gonna be a golden rule to make your travel or transition to a new country super easy, but it can help. Possible. If you have any questions about Australia or those first few months, or what to do when you arrive to a new country, or if you want to share your story, how it was for you, I don't know, were you stressed, happy, excited? Let me know in the comment below. And thank you for today. And in the next video, we're gonna talk about finding a job, because this is exciting as well. Stressful, but quite exciting. Thank you for today and see you next time.